Off the tracks. It's Jhett. It's Rafe. We are back talking NBA hoops. The weekend has come and gone, and there were some really good games this past weekend, specifically yesterday. We're gonna get into those today. Rafe, how are you feeling?
Feel pretty good. The NBA season is back, is rolling. As you said, there's been a lot of good games. There's been some fun basketball to watch. I'm excited to talk about it.
Absolutely. And so obviously we did the video. That was what? That was Friday that had come out.
Yes, yeah, Friday.
Oh, so we obviously we didn't get the Friday night games, Saturday night games, or Sunday night games. So we're gonna kind of lump uh, a lot of the things that we want to talk about from the weekend into today. We're gonna start from last night. The Clippers going into Golden State and picking up a big time win. They're 2-0 now on, or two, excuse me, 2-1 now on the year. The Los Angeles Clippers. Where where are the Clippers winning right now?
Uh, I mean, I think it's a couple different areas. I think Derrick Jones has slid in nicely. He had 18 last night. Zubac had a big double, 23 and 18 points. I think that was a big area where they won against the Warriors, was in the paint. Zubac had a big night. Really not a lot from the Warriors side that really could slow him down. Plus, then you add in Norman Powell, who had 20 points as well, and then Harden, who had 23. Harden's going to get his points every night. But they just played well as a unit, I think, and so far, making me eat my words a little bit, they're looking all right in the Western Conference.
Zubac now leading the league in rebounds per game through 3 games. He's got 14 of them. He's been playing really well, 23 and 18, like last night, like you said. James Harden also had 23, did it on 31% shooting, 6 of 19 from the field, got to the free throw line 9 times, 2 of 12 from three. If that was James Harden ball, really to a T that we talked about on Friday, uh, James Harden ball, can it work?
Can it work? I still don't think so. That's why I still believe they're not really going to make a whole lot of noise in the West. Like I said, it doesn't matter how James Harden's shooting. If he's shooting well, he's shooting bad. He's going to get his points one way or another. I think it just kind of depends on how these other guys fit in with it. As we saw against the Warriors, it worked well. Still only walked away with an 8-point win against a Warriors team that struggled in that game. We've seen Curry kind of. Again, Curry is another guy. He's going to do what he's going to do, but he hasn't really been the leading scorer for this team or the guy in these first few games. It's worked for some, didn't work out in this one, and but we'll see. We'll see what the Clippers can do.
I'll get to the Warriors in a moment. Before we do, Norman Powell. I mean, early on this season, he's averaging 24 points a game, and that's really been it. He hasn't passed the ball much. He hasn't been rebounding the ball. He had 17 in game one. He had 37 against Denver, 20 last night. Is this sustainable to rely on guys like Norman Powell and Derrick Jones Jr. For the rest of the year?
It's going to have to be if you want to win. I don't think it's necessarily sustainable, especially whenever the ball starts sticking a little bit more with James Harden. But that's the guy that they need Norman Powell to be is a guy that's a knockdown shooter on the perimeter. You don't need him to do anything else. James Harden's gonna have the ball most of the time. He's gonna try and make the plays that he can. If he can do this, the Clippers, I don't think it makes them necessarily a contender, but I think it allows them to make a little bit of noise in the Western Conference.
On the other side of that, the Golden State Warriors last night really kind of fell out of this game when Steph Curry left the game with an injury in the fourth quarter. Excuse me, he might have left in the third with the injury, but he had 18 before he went down. He was starting to really find his flow. It's really hard right now to find that score because it's been Buddy Hield the first couple of games, and obviously, if you've watched any NBA basketball, you know that that's not going to last. Jonathan Kuminga was really taking over last night when Curry went down, but it was Andrew Wiggins in this one that had 29 points on 73% shooting. Does this Warriors team, do they have the pieces to maybe make a run at their postseason and get to maybe a second round?
I mean, on paper, you like what you're seeing. You hear, oh, Buddy Hield's going off the first couple games. Andrew Wiggins has 29. That sounds like a recipe of success with Steph Curry on your team. He went out with injury, as you said last night, but I don't know. It just something seems missing. I don't know. It's just not all connecting for him right now. It worked well. The first game against Portland was this her second game?
Third, I think.
Third,
Yeah,
okay.
they're 2-1 now.
Two. 2-1. So, hopefully Curry's able to come back soon and they can start getting that continuity going. But I don't know. I just don't think when you're relying on Wiggins, and again, I know Curry went out with injury, but when you're relying on Wiggins to be your leading scorer and your guy, I don't know if it's going to win a whole lot of games.
And see, I wasn't impressed with. I mean, Kaminga he made a few plays there late, but Draymond Green, where was he late in this? Trace Jackson Davis really didn't play well at all in this one. Pods didn't play well. There was really no one that picked up the pieces when Hield wasn't playing very well, and Curry went out. There was no one there that took the game over and kept the Warriors in it, and that was a big reason I thought they lost this game. Uh, it didn't shoot particularly well. I mean, they still had 14 threes, but when turnovers to 19 assists, that it's going to be tough to win a basketball game putting up numbers like that. Sunday basketball was fun, not if you're a Pacers fan. Tyrese Maxey, 45 points. Had a really bad first half, too. Sixers win 118-114. This Sixers team is really looking better than I thought they would be, and that's without Joel Embiid and Paul George. This team we talked about on Friday, if the Sixers find themselves in a position where they're a 6 seed or a 7 seed, they might get in trouble. And watching that game yesterday, it was really just, man, this if Philadelphia, if they can just hold their own, if they can hold their own when Paul George and Joel Embiid aren't playing, this team could win a championship. And I truly believe that.
And that's the key. That's the key is the games without those two right now is sustaining it, getting as many wins as you can. So when they are back and when it is postseason time, you've set yourself up with the best possible chance seeding wise. Hopefully when Paul George comes back, though, he's able to play most of the games. I know they really didn't discuss load management with him, but we will see Joel miss games throughout the year. You add Paul George to this, even without Joel Embiid and how Maxey's playing. Oubre had 14. Eric Gordon off the bench with 15 points. That's huge. You add Paul George to that, I think they have a good chance at getting a high seed. But yeah, it was a big game from Philly and obviously a big game from Maxey.
It really did. Like with how bad Maxey played in that first half, the fact that they were even able to come out and win this game was just insanely impressive on the road in the Pacers home opener. Uh, Kyle Lowry had come in and hit a couple big threes in this one. One of them was a second chance three, which was kind of the storyline in this one for the Pacers, and it's been the storyline in the past for them. And that second chance points. Miles Turner, I can say everything I want about Miles Turner. I can praise him as a player until I'm blue in the face because I think he's an absolutely amazing player. His rebounding numbers are just not good at all. And the Pacers got out rebounded badly in this game. The Sixers had 54 rebounds, the Pacers 37. And to me, that's where they lost a lot of games last season, and that's where they lost in this one as well. Aaron Nesmith was the leading rebounder with 7. He's out rebounding Siakam and Toppin and Turner. And I understand you're going against Andre Drummond on that other side. I think he had 17 rebounds. They got to find something in that area, uh, figure things out beyond the rebounding category. Tyrese Halliburton played fine. He hit the big three at the end of the regulation to send the game into overtime. Didn't think he played particularly well in that fourth quarter up to that point. Didn't think he played particularly well in overtime. Um, I just I'm gonna be patient with him because he's earned it. He earned it with last season. He's going to continue to earn it. And I'm very confident this Pacers team will figure it out. But Andrew Nembhard is going to have to start playing better basketball, and it just has to start happening now. He's not shooting well. He's not been reliable to shoot the three ball or even just shoot in general. Aaron Nesmith kind of the same. He played well last night, and I was okay with his performance, but he still just has to be better, especially if this team is wanting to get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. What have you seen with this Pacers team so far? What's holding them back? What's got them at 1-2?
I'm not sure exactly what it is. Obviously, that next game, it wasn't a great shooting performance from the Pacers. But on paper, this roster looks like it has everything it needs, especially coming off of an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. You talk about the rebounding issue. I think that was an issue. And again, it's another thing where you kind of scratch your head because they got the guys that look like can rebound. Obi Toppin, a crazy athletic guy. You feel like he should dominate the glass. And if not, Miles Turner, your big center down there. So to me, this Pacers season has kind of been a head scratcher because I think they're much better than what they've played. I think they'll get there. It may just have to come down to time on task. And although it doesn't make a lot of sense because a lot of these guys were together last year, but I think it'll come with them. Just for whatever reason, it hasn't clicked right away.
That's one thing that's really confused me is how it hasn't clicked yet. What happened in the off season to maybe contribute to the slow start? Um, didn't play well against the Pistons. Didn't shoot well at all. Didn't shoot well at all against the Knicks. Shot fine in this game, I thought. Again, it was just the rebounding, and there were some really timely turnovers. Halliburton turned it over like 3 times in a row in overtime, and that was he did that in the playoffs against was it the Celtics, I think, where had a chance to go and win it, and really bad turnovers at really bad times, really killed him. So that's something that they're absolutely gonna have to lock in, and I think it's gonna have to be quick. You've got the Celtics, you've got the Magic tonight, Celtics on Wednesday. Not a lot of time to really figure it out. I'm 1-2. My Pacers are 1-2. Your Thunder 3-0. They beat the Hawks last night, and I'll tell you what, it was getting pretty close.
It
It was
was
starting to get
close.
close there. It goes Alexander at Holmgren taking over in the third quarter. What a game from the Thunder last night to really, in my opinion, battle through the adversity of an inferior opponent, getting hot, and coming on your home court. What were you thinking last night?
Yeah, I know they were frustrated with how the game was being officiated most of the game, which is unusual with this team. You'll see a guy ask for a foul every now and then, but I mean, Mark Daignault got a technical last night, which rarely happens. So they were getting pretty frustrated with that aspect of it, but they didn't let it bother them too much. The game was close, but it never really felt like the Thunder let it get out of control. It seemed like they kind of had control of the game most of the game. It was back and forth for a while, and as you said, in the third quarter, they kind of started to spread it out a little bit. Um, Defensively, again, just everywhere. I know they haven't really played anybody yet, but they're 3-0. But the defense jumps off the screen, honestly. Whenever you come to play the Oklahoma City team, um, they're going to turn you over unless you have to take care of the ball. You have to. They're going to be all over every pass, every loose ball, which is very fun to watch. It's very fun to watch their defense. Offensively, it still hasn't necessarily came around yet. Not great shooting numbers again. And I feel like that's kind of common around the league right now for whatever reason. Shooting numbers seem to be a little bit down for most teams. So I'm still kind of waiting to see what this team looks like with both the defense and offense going. And obviously, they got the Spurs Wednesday, which again isn't a great opponent. We'll see whenever they start to get some of the more tougher teams in the West that I feel like could be real contenders to them and what they look like. But yeah, a couple good wins over the weekend, and they're sitting at 3-0.
I'm going to talk about the Spurs a little bit later on, and that matchup with the Thunder, because I think the Spurs young core is really performing well. But this Thunder team, and you're talking about that defense. Chet Holmgren, 6 blocks last night. I mean, he's got to be leading the league in blocks per game with 4 right now. Second in the league in rebounds per game at 13. Really starting to put it together in his technically sophomore campaign. Not going for Rookie of the Year this year. It's Chet
Fortunately, not.
Holmgren, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander put up a stat line that only like, he became the 6th player to do it last night with 35, 11, 9, 3 steals, 3 blocks. He's really, and I think last year he took that step. Now he's starting to take that step to, hey, I want to win the MVP this year. I think it's going to be the 3-point shooting that keeps him from maybe being okay, this is the guy. This guy's the MVP year in, year out. Do you think that Shai's shooting will come along this season?
Um, I think eventually it will. Look, he's shooting more threes by volume by far already in these first 3 games than he has in any season previous. It's something that he's worked on a lot in the offseason was the pull up three, the catch and shoot, really all types of 3-point shots because he just didn't shoot a lot of them. He would make them whenever he did last year, but he only shot maybe 3 to a game. He shot 8 this game, which is probably the most, if not tied for the most this year. I can't remember exactly how many he shot the first 2 games, but he is shooting a lot more threes this year. I think it's still something that he's working on. It's not all the way there yet. Um, but as long as that mid range is still there and that driving is still there, and he's got an unbelievable handle on the ball, I think it's a little underrated how well of a handle he has on the ball. Um, but yeah, I think he's going to be well within MVP conversations. We'll see if the 3-point shooting comes along, but the mid range is always going to be there, and his driving ability is always going to be there.
Quickly want to talk about the Spurs, who the Thunder are going to take on Wednesday, like you said. The defense is good too. They're holding opponents to 41% shooting per game. That's third in the league. It gets a little bit better beyond the 3-point line. 37% from three they're giving up this year. Is this a game where you really think the Thunder can go in and start kind of hitting their stride beyond the arc?
I don't know if it'll happen this game. I hope so. There was a couple more threes that went down from last night against the Hawks. We'll see though. I think they don't need it against the Spurs. There will be teams though that they play where they will need to start hitting some more threes than what they are. But as you said, the Spurs have a good young core. I think they will be a play-in team this year for sure. Maybe even a little bit better, but absolutely a play-in team. It's always a fun matchup too when you see Chet and Wemby go at each other. Just two freaks of builds that can do everything on the court. So it's always a fun matchup to see the Thunder and Spurs play, and I'm excited to watch it.
I'm very excited to watch that game as well. I've really enjoyed watching the Thunder this year, but I've also really enjoyed watching the Spurs. Jeremy Sohan, 17 and a half points a game so far. Wemby, 23. Julian Champagny, 15. Keldon Johnson, 11 and a half. Stephon Castle is playing really well in his rookie campaign. This young core is starting to put it together in San Antonio. I think they're still obviously, a couple pieces away from people turning their heads and paying attention to the Spurs, but they are on track. They are very much on track. You get teams like I think the Thunder they're kind of a year ahead in my opinion, maybe even two as far as their rebuild went. This Spurs team, I think they're very much on track. I think they're getting a lot of production out of guys maybe they didn't even expect to. But I'm very excited to watch that Spurs team the rest of the way. I believe they play the Rockets tonight. They lost to them on Saturday. Um, that Rockets team again, another team that's very good young. That's going to be a fun game to watch tonight. Um, I'm curious that under 3-0. They are one of four 3-0 teams in the league. You've got the Thunder, you've got the Boston Celtics, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Two from the East, two from the West. I want to get your take on who's impressed you the most of those four teams.
Um, I mean, it's hard not to say the Celtics. I know it's a cop out answer, but I'm just thoroughly impressed. One, I'm not saying that there's always a letdown on ring night and there's always a letdown coming after a championship year, but they have looked somehow even more dominant than maybe what they had throughout the playoffs and throughout the regular season last year. And they're still without Kristaps Porzingis. Um, just the volume of how they've been able to shoot, they've been able to keep it up. And again, as I said, it's been a league where shooting numbers have relatively been down, but the Celtics did not get that memo. And I think for that reason alone, it's been just so much fun and so impressive to watch what they've done on the offensive end, night in and night out.
The Celtics are one of those teams, and the way they shoot the basketball right now, with as many times as they shoot the ball, they should not rank second in the NBA in
No,
three-point
not at all.
percentage. It's unbelievable. Excuse me, first in the league in three-point percentage. 44% of their threes they're knocking down, and they're putting a lot of them up. So to see that, it has been really impressive. I really do think the Celtics are the clear cut team out of the East right now. But the 3-0 team that's really impressed me the most is the Cleveland Cavaliers. We talked about it a little bit on Friday. I had the Cavs as a contender on my side out of the Eastern Conference. They lead the league in field goal percentage as well as points per game, third in steals and blocks a game, second in 3-point field goal percentage behind the Celtics. You know, including my Cavaliers fan that is one of my roommates. He has been out on this Cavs team as well. I am fully in on this team. I think they have the pieces to really make a run at this thing. Jared Allen has been really good for them down low. Donovan Mitchell is a shot creator. I don't know. There's probably a handful of guys that I can put in the same rel as Donovan Mitchell when it comes to creating shots. Karis LeVert, I think, has been one of the more pleasant surprises on this team this year. He's really contributing. Ty Jerome as well. Darius Garland had a rough game one, played very well in the last two games. Evan Mobley's developing well. I really like this Cavaliers team. I really do. They extend Donovan Mitchell in the offseason. I believe they're gonna have to still extend Darius Garland yet, but when we're talking best 3-0 teams, I understand they're in the same conference as the Celtics. I am very impressed with this Cleveland Cavaliers team. I don't want to leave the other 3-0 teams out. You've got the Lakers. We already talked about the Thunder, I guess. So that Los Angeles Lakers squad, I asked you on Friday, I said, does JJ Redick make this team a top 3 team in the West? You said no. Has your mind changed on that at all?
Not really, but it has been a very pleasant surprise. I think they are a much better team with JJ Redick as the head coach. He's got him playing well. Um, Dalton Connect's been a key. I mean, he might make a run for the rookie of the year, and he was a late pick. I don't know how he fell that far down, especially looking back, hindsight being 2020. How did he fall all the way to the Lakers? But he did. Um, I think I still think there's a number of teams that talent wise and coaching wise are better. Again, I really like JJ Redick, and I hope he does well, and I think he will do well. Um, I think they'll have a better record this year for sure. But still, I'm still not sold as a top 3 team in the Western Conference.
I think I am. I really do think I am. I think with the way I've seen the Western Conference play, the Nuggets have clearly fallen off. The
Mhm.
Kings are struggling. I understand they've played a really tough schedule. But this Laker team is good. They've got Anthony Davis, who if I had to pick an MVP right now, it would probably be him or Tatum. Uh, both of those guys have been unbelievable this year. This Laker offense was the big problem for them a season ago, among other things, but the offense couldn't get it going this year. They're fourth in the league in points per game, third in the league in field goal percentage, ranked fourth in assists per game. That is a direct result of JJ Redick being the head coach. That is the
Mhm.
direct result of using guys like Austin Reeves in the right way, who, by the way, is averaging 18, 6, 6 on 55% shooting and 43% from the three. And you think they're not going to take that every day? Rui Hachimura has been phenomenal for them down low. He's one of the best defenders down low in the game of basketball. You have Davis doing his thing. You have LeBron doing his thing. D'Angelo Russell's finding his role in this offense. And actually, like you said, is really played well. I remember watching the game, their most recent game uh, against the Kings, and the Kings had taken a big lead up on them. I think they were up 20 at one point in this game. Lakers come back, they get it within 7, and I looked over and I said, the next going to hit a big three, and that's going to start this run. And it did. And LeBron goes off in the fourth quarter. I'm very impressed with this Laker team. They'll play the Suns tonight. Um, they just met on October 25th, where they beat the Lakers. This Suns team, man, how about them Suns?
Yeah, they're I'm a believer in the Suns. I know I put them in the pretender list in our first video, but I didn't want to. It's just because I had to. It's just because I didn't have any other possible contenders that I felt were necessarily worthy of being on the pretender list. But yeah, I'm a big Suns believer. Like I said in the first video, I think they're going to be a lot better this year, and they've showed it in just a short amount of time. That game against the Lakers becomes very intriguing, as it looks like we've got 2 contenders right now with the Lakers and Suns. Um, but yeah, Kevin Durant, I mean, in my opinion, the greatest scorer of all time on that team, and he's doing what he needs to do. And again, fourth quarter scoring against the Mavericks in the game that they won Saturday. He had 23 points in the fourth, outscored the Mavericks in the fourth. It was only by 1, but turned out to be big late. It was a close game, that was a huge win for the Suns.
I really think in that game, Kevin Durant still proved that he is the guy. If
Yeah.
you need a guy to go get a bucket down 7 late, Kevin Durant is your guy to get things going. He's proven that this year. He's averaging 28 a game. Um, that's been in the absence of Bradley Beal for, I think he's played 2 games this season of their 3. He's questionable tonight. I don't know if anything's out on him and whether or not he will play. I really still think the thing that's going to catch this Suns team is the lack of depth. They've got Booker. I think Tyus Jones has played really well this season. Nurkic has also, I thought, performed really well. But after that, there's not a whole lot to look at on this team. Oso Ighodaro has been getting minutes, which I really do love. Uh, he was a really good player out of Marquette. Is that going to catch this Phoenix team, and do they need to address that,
It
like,
is a bit of a
through
short
trade?
bench. Yeah, it is. It is a bit of a short bench. They may make a move, uh, come trade deadline time to just kind of lengthen it a little bit. But I think there is some nice pieces coming off the bench. Grayson Allen being one of those. It looks like he didn't play against the Mavericks. Um, but I think there's some good pieces coming right off the bench for the Suns. It's just not as deep maybe as some of the other contenders have. But I don't think it's going to be as much as an issue for maybe some other teams, because as long as the game's close and you can get it to Kevin Durant at the end of the game, you can get it to Devin Booker towards the end of the game, and hopefully once Brad Beal's healthy again, and have those three as your closing lineup, I think they have one of the better closing lineups in the league.
There's plenty of role players out there that they could go and grab. And that brings up our next point, an NBA expansion. I really think this season so far, and even last season, really highlighted how much this league needs an expansion. They're at 30 teams right now. The Utah Jazz, who in my opinion are the worst team in basketball, they have Lauri Markkanen, they have Jordan Clarkson, they have Keontae George, John Collins, and Colin Sexton. All five of those guys are averaging double digits. They are the worst team in basketball. How have we gotten here? What is the solution to this? Or does there need to be a solution to this?
I mean, I think it's always fun whenever you've got a league where any team can beat any other team any given night. But I definitely think that the NBA is 1000% looking at expansion, and it's probably going to happen within the next few years. And I don't think that would necessarily be a bad thing either. I think there's a lot of talent out there that aren't even on teams right now. I mean, Lonnie Walker didn't make a team before this year. I know Landry Shamit's hurt right now, but he was another guy that wasn't on a roster to start this year. So there's a number of guys, and I'm sure I'm missing a bunch more, that aren't superstar level players, but are definitely winning basketball players and can add depth to any of these teams. And they just didn't make rosters. So there's absolutely room for expansion. I think a team in Seattle would definitely be fun. A team in Las Vegas would be fun. And there's probably some other locations that they're looking at, but I would say expansion happens relatively soon.
Oh, I'll give you mine first. Not name Seattle, your two cities that you would like to see get a team, because you would expect that they're going to expand to 32 teams
Sure.
from the 30 they're at now. Outside of Seattle, I think some cities that really intrigue me. I think Nashville would be really
Yeah.
cool.
Hmm.
Growing market in Tennessee. They've got the Memphis Grizzlies. Um, I think getting another basketball team there would be really cool. I think St. Louis. I think that's a real sports city. As much as I dislike the Cardinals, they took the Rams from them a few years ago, and that fan base out in Los Angeles for them has not gone particularly well. I think if you really put a basketball team in St. Louis, and I don't think they will, I think they will go Vegas and Seattle. But if you could get a team in St. Louis, Missouri, I think there would be a lot of support around that. I think a lot of people in the surrounding areas would also love that, because the other side of that, Kansas City, I really think they lean more towards the Thunder. And so
Yeah.
it would give more people in Missouri a reason to cheer for their hometown team.
Let me throw in another city. Let me throw in another one. Cincinnati. I think
Love it.
Cincinnati would be a good basketball town.
Love it.
I think it'd
Love
be
it.
a great
That was
basketball town.
that was a 2K expansion team, the Cincinnati Barons. I'd always pick them in rebuilds.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Always move my teams to Cincinnati. Always.
So with this season started, we've talked about some of the 3-0 teams that are really impressing. There are some other teams around the league that could maybe be 3-0 here, could have better records, could have. Should these teams panic? I want to start out with the Milwaukee Bucks. They're at 1-2 right now. Should the Milwaukee Bucks be panicking?
I think the panic meter is starting to get there, for me anyway. I thought this team was going to be better to start the year. We're only 3 games into the year, so panic was probably be a little bit of an overreaction right now. And I Chris Middleton still isn't back, right?
Right.
So you're still missing some pieces, but Tarian Prince only had 3 points last night or whatever their last game was, and that was a guy that I thought would make a bigger impact on this team, and that will probably need to make a bigger impact on this team to win some games. I thought Dame and Giannis would start having a nice connection going. They both had over 20 in their last game, but I think the panic meter is starting to get there a little bit, especially after losing. Now the Nets aren't terrible, but losing to the Nets probably isn't something you want to see early on.
Yeah, I mean, they've got Giannis, they've got Dame, Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez have played good to start out the year, which they have been doing. Is this team missing Chris Middleton, or is the problem bigger than that? Do
I
they
think it's
need more off this bench?
I think it's bigger than that, honestly, because I expected them to look better than this, even without Chris Middleton to start the year. I don't think Chris Middleton changes a whole lot. He adds a little bit more scoring. Um, I don't know exactly what the problem is right now, but I do think it's bigger than just getting Chris Middleton back in the lineup.
Should the Indiana Pacers at 1-2 haven't looked particularly well on the offensive side of the ball? Could they panic?
I don't think it's panic time yet for Indiana. I think they get a little bit more grace here. They're coming off of an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. Again, I've said it a couple times. Offense is down a little bit. Shooting is down a little bit across the lead, outside of some outliers. So I don't think it's necessarily panic time yet. Um, I would still give it maybe a month or two before we start to get into that area, just because we saw what they could do last year. They were a good offensive team last year, and it's relatively the same team as last year. And again, coming off the Eastern Conference Finals, I don't think it's panic time yet.
So it's relatively the same team last year. Do you think that's really their thing? Is they just got to let these guys mesh together and get in a good flow? Do you think there, or do you think there's a trade that needs to happen to get someone else on this team?
I wouldn't panic button hit trade yet. Again, if it's a couple months and this is still starting to look like it's still looking like this, yeah, I would start to maybe explore some options, evaluate, see what the hole is that you need to fill. But yeah, it's early as 3 games. For whatever reason, something's not clicking. I'd give him some time, see if it starts going, and if not, in a couple months, then yeah, maybe explore that option.
Denver Nuggets at 0-2. Should they panic?
Yes, I thought it was panic time after game one. Just how bad they looked, and I think someone else brought this up on a show I was watching. I can't remember who it was, but they looked old. I know they're not an old team, but against the Thunder, they just looked old. They looked slow, and I know the Thunder's the youngest team by average age, so obviously they're going to be a little bit quicker, a little bit more athletic. But and then we've discussed the shooting issues and the issues of the bench. Yeah, it's definitely time to panic. This team isn't going to do a whole lot in the Western Conference as is.
If you want to talk about teams that have no depth, I think look no further than Nuggets. I bring up the Jazz as the worst team in basketball, but even they almost look a little bit better than this Nuggets team. Is that like where would you expect this Nuggets team to be seated? Like if you had to pick today?
Right now, as it stands, looking at I mean, it might be a play-in team. Honestly, I think you look at, I think a similar comp in terms of record and things like that. I think the way the Lakers were last year, I think is a similar comp to kind of the record that the Nuggets would have this year as it stands.
Finally, I've got one last team, the Sacramento Kings. Should they panic?
I wouldn't panic yet. You had a big player in DeMar DeRozan. Maybe just trying to find a way that he fits in here. Um, let's see here against the Lakers. What did he have?
He played well against the Lakers. He had 23 on
23.
75% shooting.
Yeah, Fox had 28, Murray with 14, Sabonis 29. I mean, those are good numbers, and they put up 127 points. Unfortunately, they gave up 131. So I wouldn't say it's panic time for the Kings. I think they can make this work. I still don't have a lot of faith in them right now in the Western Conference in terms of making it far. They could be a playoff team, a lower seeded playoff team. But I honestly, I just think that was their ceiling heading into this year, even with the addition of DeRozan. So in terms of expectations, no, I don't think it's time to panic for the Kings.
I really like this Kings team a lot. I do. I love Sabonis. I think he's one of the better players in the league. De'Aaron Fox, DeMar, they're all three averaging 20 plus. Keegan Murray is developing nicely. Malik Monk is surprisingly having a really good year. Again, I think it's going to be depth with this Kings team. And plus, they've lost by a combined 5 points against the Lakers and the Timberwolves, who are both playing really good basketball. I would certainly not panic yet if I'm the Sacramento Kings. I still think there's time to, obviously, there's definitely still time to get back in it, but I think they will figure it out. I'm pretty high on the Kings. I think they're going to have a good season. That's all we've got for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We are trying to get clips everywhere. Twitter as well, X rather, I guess.
Whatever you
Make sure you
call
go
it.
follow us. Make sure you go follow us on all those platforms and subscribe to us here. Turn notifications on because if we don't know when we're going to post, how can you? Um, we still use that one? I don't know. We
I
kind of
think
know when
so.
we're going to
Yeah.
post.
We don't really have a schedule, so.
Thank you all so much for watching. Off the tracks. Peace.